Your financial net worth is your current financial position. A bit like taking a financial selfie and seeing exactly where you are from the perspective of your assets on one hand and your liabilities on the other. Your financial net worth is a single number that takes the sum of all those assets by value, less the sum of all those liabilities by value, and gives you one number. And it's your hope and my hope that that number is a positive number. And if you track that number over time, you therefore are building your net worth over time. But today I really want to just unpack that idea of what is your financial net worth? How do you calculate it? How do you track it? We've been asked this question many times in our comments. I'll put up an example just for you to see. And it's important for us to show that we listen to you as our viewers by making videos that really help you to answer your questions. So today I really want to unpack this very practically. I'm going to head over to the back of my studio here and get onto my whiteboard and just really share with you what sort of items should you have on the asset section of your net worth calculation, and what sort of things should go in your liabilities section, and what sort of things should you not include at all. And I just want to mention, as you watch this video, we've included a freebie for you today, which is a free net worth tracker that you can use to calculate your net worth as well as to track it. Have some charts and graphs and things. It's a very simplistic net worth calculator, which I'll put in the links below and above for you to grab and use for yourself. My name's Ken of the Humble Penny and Financial Joy Academy. What we do on this channel is to give you guys the tips, the insights, practical hacks to help you work towards a dream life of financial independence and money joy. Beyond tracking your net worth and growing and seeing that thing increase in value, hopefully over time, the net worth is very important for other reasons as well. The second reason is that the net worth helps you actually see the state of your assets and liabilities. You're able to take a very close look at them and say, so those are the assets I've got on my net worth, and those are the liabilities I've got on my net worth. And what's very interesting psychologically, when you think about it, when you're able to see your assets either increasing in value or decreasing in value, is that it really informs you on what type of asset you should be investing your money into in the near future. So for example, we've made a video recently about how cars literally keep you poor. If you've not seen that video, very popular, I'll put in links below and above for you to head over and check it out. Imagine if you had your car on your net worth and had a value for it. I can guarantee that the chances are that the value of that car will be decreasing over time because cars are typically wasting assets. And so the psychology of calculating your net worth over time is that you're able to then really get to intimately understand your numbers. I don't want to give you some ideas, but you get what I mean. You just understand your numbers a lot better. The other really interesting reason for calculating your net worth is a bit more of a personal one. I'm going to tell you a bit of a story related to it. We knew somebody whose mum unfortunately passed away. What was really tragic about that scenario was that beyond obviously the person passing away was that nobody, absolutely no one, knew what she owned and what she owed. There was no calculation, no communication, nothing. And when this event happened, quite sadly, people were left completely confused, not knowing what to do. So I'm sharing this so that you don't just think of the financial net worth as just some number for tracking your wealth over time, but to really start to really own this idea of tracking and calculating your net worth, not just for you, but also for your family, for your parents, for people like that. Because believe it or not, the financial net worth calculation essentially acts as a communication tool. It enables conversations that are typically ignored to be had, for fathers to speak with their sons or daughters, for mothers to speak with their sons or daughters or their siblings. So I really want to unpack this subject in a really practical way because I really want you to own it and walk away from this video today saying to yourself, I now fully understand what a financial net worth is, how I can calculate it for myself, and even better than that, Ken's given me a simple, net worth tracker that I can use for myself to do it, without any difficulty or excuse for that matter. All right, let's jump in now. I'm going to head over to my board and just start to unpack what this looks like, what you should have in your net worth calculation and what you should not have, and so on. Let's dive straight in. And by the way, if you're really enjoying this video, hey, hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe, show the humble penny some love, because we go to such a great length to make sure that we create to help you move forward in your financial life as well. Okay guys, so your net worth, like I mentioned earlier, it's the sum of all your assets, so the value of assets at the date you're calculating your net worth. Let's say it's today, for example. We want to work out and write down what all our assets are. So I've written 10 of them here, and I'm going to give you some examples of what you add here as assets. So what's the current value of each one of those assets? And then we're going to look at your liabilities. And what's the current value? And we'll have about 10 of them here as examples of what you can include on your net worth. So you add all your assets. In this very simple scenario, you have all of them adding up to a number I've called A, sum of all your assets. And then we add up all your liabilities here, they'll add up to a number that I've represented with the letter B, okay? And so total number of A, let's say A was, making it up, 100,000, take away the sum of B, let's say B was 50,000, we'll give you A, take away B, which is, in that example and that scenario, will be a net worth of 50,000. Okay, so let's fill this in now and explain to you what sort of things you can have on your assets and your liabilities. By the way, in terms of definitions, assets are typically defined as a source of future economic value. In very simple terms, these tend to be things that put money into your pocket. Something that has some economic value is typically classed as an asset. Whereas liabilities are things that typically take money away from your pocket. Essentially, the things whereby if you stopped paying for them, somebody will come knocking on your door and chasing you to pay for them. Let me now give you some examples of what sort of assets and liabilities you can include on your net worth calculation. Okay, so here are some examples of assets that you can include on your net worth. This is by no means the only assets that you can include, hence I've got the ETC at the end, but these are just good examples because I have people asking me all the time, should I include this on my net worth calculator? Should I include life insurance? Should I include my house? All kinds of things, okay? So these are just good examples. Cash is obviously cash. It's just amount of cash you've got, whether in your bank account or just, somewhere else outside your bank account. Savings, such as your ISAs. Your house, this is an interesting one because some people say you should not include, your home on your net worth calculation, when in actual fact, I personally believe that you should because, your house typically represents a big part of your net worth. But do make sure, and we'll talk about liabilities in a minute, that if you do have a mortgage on your property, that you of course represent the liability element on the net worth as well, okay? Now, other things such as gold, and the key here really is including assets using an estimate that's absolutely realistic, because it can be very tempting to just add very ambitious numbers here, but try and get the numbers from the most reliable source. So for example, your house value, you might go to somewhere like Rightmove or Zoopla, all these platforms online that have decent values, or you might even take a bit of a discount on the valuation that you have for these various items. Again, you get the valuation for your rental property, but on the liability side, which we're going to talk about in a second, you also include the mortgage that's left on that property. So in effect, what you're trying to capture here is the level of equity. All these assets, what you're trying to capture here is the value of these assets, assuming you sold them all today. Imagine they were all liquidated today, and someone said, yeah, what is it you own as one number and what is it you owe as one number, and you take one from the other to get to that point where you arrive at your financial net worth. So we carry on then at other assets. Again, things like digital assets. Again, be quite careful there in terms of the valuations, making sure that you are being prudent, you're being careful, and you're estimating them, giving them reasonable levels of estimates based on reliable sources of the value of these various assets. Now, as I mentioned earlier, what's interesting as you look at these various assets is that over time, as you begin to track your net worth, 1 month after the other, you start to notice interesting trends. Things like cars will start to fall in value, whereas other things like, for example, land or your savings, if your savings rate's going up and you've been using those savings and investing them into your investing account, for example, things like that will be going up potentially in value over time. Things such as gold and your home will more likely be going up in value, but over time you see certain things really stick out to you, and this is a psychological bit I mentioned earlier when I introduced this video. Okay, let's now look at the liabilities and what sort of things you can include on your financial net worth calculation. Okay, on the liability side, you're looking at things that you owe people, okay? Things such as your mortgage on your home. I'm talking about the value of the mortgage that you owe, in terms of, i.e. the big number you owe, not your monthly expense amount, okay? Credit cards, again, you're looking at how much you owe in total per credit card, add them all together, you'd write the number there. In terms of the spreadsheet, you simply just type the number into the spreadsheet that I mentioned earlier. Rental property mortgage, so if you've got a buy-to-let and you've mentioned on the asset side the value of that property, you also have to put in the corresponding liability of that particular property. So you have the equity, essentially, is what you're calculating here. Tax liability, if you're owing the tax man, this is definitely one to put down. Student loans, okay? If you are now starting to pay back your student loans, it will be prudent to put that number within your net worth calculation. Payday loans, rent owed. This is an interesting one because people do owe rent and that can build up and that becomes a liability that you have to pay back to somebody else. Car finance. Again, if you added cars here on this side, on the asset side, you also have to add the amount you're owing, i.e. the loan, rather than the expense amount each month. Unsecured personal loans. You can have unsecured personal loans. And the final one I've mentioned, unpaid bills that start to build up. Let's say you haven't paid bills for a few months and that becomes a liability. You've got some form of a payment arrangement or something. You need to put in that amount that you owe into your net worth calculation. Now you can see we've got, again, that's by no means the only type of liabilities that you can include, but at least it gives you an idea of what sort of things that you can add here in order to add up all those numbers here and get an asset number and add up all the corresponding numbers at the end there to get yourself a liability number. And that number at the bottom, the total assets less the total liabilities, is what gives you your financial net worth. And it's your hope that you are in the black, i.e. a net asset position rather than a net liability position, which means that you are potentially in the red. Now, I've heard people ask things such as, should I include my life insurance on my net worth calculation? Now, I do not include life insurance because I've got what's known as term life insurance, which is not guaranteed to pay out. So it's not like the type of life insurance where you are definitely guaranteed to get a payout. Mine only runs for a term period, say 40 years or 50 years or whatever. So I do not include that. But if your life insurance is guaranteed to pay out, then you might want to consider including it. But even with me, I'm super cautious about stuff like that. I personally would not even add it here. I'd much rather have that kind of in my back pocket as something that's a surprise one day, but not included here within the net worth. Some people go as far as actually stripping out their house because they consider that to be, well, you live in that house, you shouldn't include it. Again, that's down to you. I add that because my home, for example, which is mortgage free, represents a big part of our net worth. And our home is an income generator. It's by no means a liability at all because we earn an income from this home. Plus, we don't have a mortgage on it, so we definitely add it on our net worth. In addition, some people look at their pensions and say, well, you can't easily liquidate that, so they put it what's known as kind of below the line, as it were. Essentially, what they're doing there is saying, I can't easily assess my pension perhaps at this age, so I might want to be more prudent and kind of leave it below the line as far as my net worth calculation is concerned. But my view is I wouldn't include that on my net worth calculation because for a lot of people here in the UK, for example, pensions represent a big part of many people's current and future wealth. So why not include that in there if you've been spending, a lot of your salary and so on contributing to that pension for years, for example. But the key is to have a prudent estimate, i.e. a realistic estimate of the values of all of these various numbers from the assets and the liabilities section. Now, what should you not include on here? The things to not include are things such as your expenses. You don't want to be adding in there your Netflix expenses or your car payment each month and stuff like that. Those are just expenses. Those are not assets. They're not sources of future economic value, things that are earning you an income potentially, and they're not liabilities. They're just expenses that go out every single month. So don't add your car expense or your Netflix and things like that into your net worth. Okay, so there you have it on how to actually calculate your net worth. Now, in terms of tracking your net worth, you find, I mentioned earlier, a spreadsheet that you can choose, that you can download for free for helping you not only calculate your net worth, but also track your net worth. Essentially, what you're doing is repeating this process every single month. The beauty of doing it is that you, of course, understand your numbers, but more importantly, you also have the peace of mind that comes from knowing that you're not kind of giving away your financial information to some app online, but you're using a spreadsheet to do it manually and work out your net worth yourself. To track, you simply have to just keep calculating these numbers each month. And each month that you update those numbers, you'd have previous month numbers that you've calculated, thereby allowing you to see how your net worth is changing over time, as well as being able to create charts and things like that to visually see how your financial net worth is changing from one month to another and from one year to another. I'm going to put up an example on the screen just so you can see what I mean from the simplistic and super practical spreadsheet I mentioned earlier that you can feel free to download if you so wanted. Guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this fun and practical video today on how to calculate your net worth and how to go about tracking it for yourself. Don't forget to grab that freebie I mentioned earlier, which I'll put in the details in the links below, as well as above for you to head over and grab that free net worth calculator for yourself. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Do you currently track your net worth? And how often do you do it? Are you quite consistent in doing it? We recommend doing it monthly, and this is what we do in our lives. It'd be interesting to know in the comments, what you do in your current life when it comes to your financial net worth. If you really enjoyed this video, hey, show us some love here at The Humble Penny. Hit like, hit share, and hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching today's video. As ever, I love really making them because I know that the things we share on this channel are going really far in helping many people, including you, in moving forward in your financial life. Thanks again for watching, and as ever, in all things, be thankful and seek joy. Take care and bye for now.